just how good is cloud gaming on Nintendo Switch? The upcoming Kingdom Hearts collection, including 1.5, 2.5, and the more recent Kingdom Hearts 3 are set to be cloud-based versions only. That is played from a server beamed over remotely via video rather than being played on the Nintendo hardware itself. More surprisingly still, recent reports have stated that the entire Kingdom Hearts collection costs $90 to play over the cloud and $50 to play each collection individually. These are without doubt steep prices for cloud-only versions, and so we wanted to investigate what the quality is, using the free trials available for the Kingdom Hearts games on the eShop already, ahead of the February release date. What's the latency like, the video quality, the resolution, settings, all of that good stuff. And let's not stop at just Kingdom Hearts here. There's also, of course, Control Ultimate Edition already on Switch, Hitman 3, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of which are only playable on Switch via a cloud-based solution. So who better to ask to join me on this crusade into cloud-based gaming on Switch than John Lindemann. How's it going?
Tom, thanks for having me on this one, because you say that, but it's actually sort of an opportunity to see if I can be convinced of the quality of this stuff, because I have expressed many doubts in regards to cloud streaming in games, but I've given these a fair shot, and I think both of us will be sharing our findings today. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I mean, we did a bit of digging into this before. Let's get the groundwork out of the way, I guess.
Sure.
A little bit of digging into where these cloud versions come from, and they're all coming from a company called Ubitus. They're a team that have servers set up, and they approach clients, game developers, to say, hey, would you like your game on Switch? You don't have to make it natively for Switch. You can have it sat on the cloud. People can beam it over to their, Switch consoles and enjoy it that way. And quite a few companies, developers have taken them up on the offer. So you end up with a situation where you boot a game, you then launch into a portal for a lot of the trial versions, at least, and you get like a choice between performance and quality modes in some games, all done through the portal. And from there, you set off one of the machines on the other end to play with those settings.
So theoretically then, this kind of makes sense at a glance. The idea here is that a lot of these games are being built for more advanced hardware than what the Switch itself would be capable of, right?
Yeah.
We've reached that point in the life cycle where it isn't really feasible to port all of these over. Some of them I might argue yes, but in other cases, there's probably no other way to get them on the Switch. The issue here, though, is that the Switch by its nature is a portable machine, and these things don't necessarily satisfy that unless you're specifically tethered to, say, a Wi-Fi access point. And playing them on a TV, well, that's something else we need to discuss. So I get the idea behind it, but it feels like a crutch.
Because I don't know about you, but did you find the experience laggy? So we booted up Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Pretty much early on, both of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was your first impression?
When people talk about cloud streaming, the first thing everybody discusses typically centers around latency, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually one area where I feel that they have succeeded. I will hand them this. Especially with Kingdom Hearts 3, the actual controller response feels surprisingly responsive, shall we say.
Yeah.
Responsive enough considering technically what's happening. I might liken it to playing a game with game mode disabled on your television, right? It's perfectly playable. It feels a little bit heavier than you might otherwise be used to, but in terms of just raw latency, it didn't seem nearly as sluggish as I might have expected. So, but you actually ran some of the numbers here, and I'm curious what you found on this.
So natively on a PC, 93.2 milliseconds. Playing a game like Control, we used NVIDIA's LDAT sensor technology. In other words, you basically make a button click, and it picks up via sensor the exact moment a sound wave comes through, and then it compares that to an on-screen change in luminance. The cloud version on Switch gets us 149.7 milliseconds average.
So this is interesting because I would say that 93 is pretty bad for an action game, and I'd be curious to see what the actual camera motion is like. But as you can see, it's basically a little over 50 milliseconds
in
terms of the additional input lag that you get when using a cloud. which kind of sort of jives with my impression of this feeling like playing with game mode disabled on your television.
Yeah, it's pretty much a good analogy. That's at 60 hertz, obviously, using wired controllers, Pro controller on the Switch, but obviously Wi-Fi, you're adding an extra variable there, and I found, did a quick test, Wi-Fi adds kind of latency spikes, 30 to 50 milliseconds at points on top of the Ethernet result, so it can take it up to 200 milliseconds depending on your connection. I was sat next to my Wi-Fi router, and it was still kind of chugging a little bit.
So first of all, problem one then is the fact that the Wi-Fi adds so much additional latency on top of the already significant latency you get when running with Ethernet.
Yeah.
Because again, the Switch is designed to be portable, and as we'll discuss, the visual presentation of these games is much more acceptable when it's in portable form, right?
Yeah.
So you basically need to be parked next to a Wi-Fi router.
Yep.
Which means that you can't take advantage of the portable nature of the system outside of, sitting near one of those routers. And I'd imagine trying to use a paired cell phone connection might not be optimal.
I did give it a go, 4G. I had a shot. It's about as good as you can imagine. You turn, and then about a split second later, it just goes with it. So, yeah, it's not really valuable. It's more of a novelty, I think, with that sort of thing.
That's pretty good then. So maybe we should talk about the individual games and specifically how the presentation varies between them.
Yeah.
And generally how our experiences were.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3, a really interesting game. It's questionable whether we could have gotten this running natively on Switch, though we've seen crazy things like Witcher 3 and, all sorts being ported. So, who knows what might have been possible. But Square Enix went this route with the cloud version. And the results are really odd. I'd say across the board, all the streams are 720p. On every cloud version I've tried, the streams are 720p video beamed across. And a lot of the games, not all, but a lot of them run natively at 720p on the server side. With Kingdom Hearts 3, it looks like a bit of a mess, to be honest. That's 720p blown up on a big screen, docked. I wouldn't want to play it this way at all. It's pretty grim. I don't know how you found it, but the sort of all the portraits of all the memories Sora has from previous games are like spinning above, and you just look up and it's a garbled mess, loads of compression everywhere.
Yeah, since this is sort of the game that triggered this topic in the first place due to its high price, I also tested this first, and I actually found it to be the least pleasing of the lot. Because as you say, the high frequency detail seems to really cause issues with the stream. But not just that, also, like for instance, the very opening scene, you're sort of in this void, right? And the entire bluish black background behind Sora there, it's just a mess of macro blocks. So what you're seeing is like this, you're seeing occasional bits of sharp edges mixed in with just severe macro blocking. It's the kind of thing that looks like YouTube from 10 years ago. When viewed on a TV, it's absolutely horrific. When viewed in portable mode, it's a little bit more palatable, but still ultimately pretty bad. So image quality is poor, but at least input response is pretty good. But the actual main problem with this, and this is something I've always had issues with cloud streaming in general, is that they just can't get frame rate stability. And this seems to be two problems here in this case. One, the actual performance of the server, but two, actually just the way frames are doled out over the stream, right?
Yeah. I mean, just a cursory look at it, like it's 30 to 40, I mean, it's unlocked 60 FPS, Kingdom Hearts 3, which is a weird choice. But they've also
it always was unlocked, if you remember.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of the complaints, is I think the other older consoles didn't exactly handle it that well. Yeah.
But it's it's sort of 30 to 45 if you look at the sky, and then the gummy ship cutscene just after that is about closer to 60. So, but you're right. You're right.
We have to estimate this a little bit because measuring this with our tools isn't really all that feasible given the high compression artifacts.
Yeah. It messes things up. definitely.
Exactly. So what other games did we look at then?
Yeah, like, I guess that is the focus, but Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, I tried that sort of collection, native 720p, and it's running at 30 FPS. 30 FPS, that's all we're getting from this version. 720p, 30 FPS, which is, come on. You know, I don't want to be too critical, but these games are...
I do.
Okay. PS2 era games. Oh, come on. We've seen better on PS3.
No, I mean, these are likely just the HD conversions, right? So it's not actually that they've ported the PS2 versions to Switch, or sorry, to whatever platform they're using for streaming here, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the presentation's not great. I mean, honestly, the first thing I can say about both Kingdom Hearts packages is that the menu stuff is the one thing that looks okay. But once you actually get into the game and the 3D and the camera starts moving around, it doesn't look great. And again, frame persistence issues. It just doesn't look smooth to the eye.
No.
So
there's uneven frame pacing on all the games which are 30 FPS capped that we're testing here. Like, so whatever's going on, the stream or the way it's been encoded out at 30 FPS, it's not going to be a good experience that way. Guardians of the Galaxy was another one I tried though, and I don't know about you, but this was not the one.
You know, when you watch sort of like an E3 presentation over a live stream, one of those company shows, and the video feed kind of breaks up, the frame rate's kind of erratic, you kind of get the impression of what you're looking at, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got here. It feels like you're watching an unreliable video stream of like a conference game. It doesn't feel like you're actually playing the game.
Guardians was really bad though. Definitely the worst. 720p, all that. But
just awful.
It's the sort of game I want to have a cloud version of, because I know it's just not going to run well natively. That feels like it would be a good idea, but they've got to do it well. And there were some glitches as well. You'll notice bits of his coat are flying above him during some sections when he gets too far ahead. It's a stranger thing, but yeah.
Okay.
A Plague Tale, same, 720p, runs at 30 FPS, uneven frame pacing. I don't know if you tried this one, but it's...
I didn't try that one. We probably don't need to dwell on it, but that's that's the only one I didn't actually sample.
It's pretty... It suffers quite a bit from compression as well. And Hitman 3, this one's really weird. It's a good argument that this works as a cloud version. It's quite slow-paced and, there's a lot of stealth gameplay. But, yeah, the stream is 720p. But I did some pixel testing, as always, and found, some of the shots come up at 1080p. It does look like, in a weird way, they're natively running at higher resolutions on the server and then beaming across a lower resolution stream.
It's very, very strange what's going on there. But either way, I immediately found that this was, again, more of the same. And this is fundamentally just the issue here, is that maybe this is a good point to talk about the connection situation, because you in particular tested on a pretty high-end connection, right?
A couple of them, a home connection BT, which is about 65 megabit connection download, and then the one nothing crazy, no, and then the one at the office, which is the Eurogamer office, which is no holds barred, just whatever you want. I had problems on both, in image quality and control. So,
and I have 100 megabits here, which is not great, but it should be ample for the streaming situation. And in fact, it's worked much better with something like GeForce Now. And to me, the fact that it's poor in both wired and wireless suggests that it's not entirely the Wi-Fi chip to blame, as I was theorizing initially. Somewhere along the chain, this is just not working well. So, I mean, Hitman 3 actually had both a performance and an enhanced graphics mode, right? And again, both of them had the same sense of just being wildly unstable, tons of macro blocking, and the controls felt especially sort of sluggish in this game, I thought.
I thought it was odd because, I booted the performance mode first and thought maybe this is this will be a good way, but it's not. I think it's still running at 30 FPS here. It seems like, if not unlocked, it's close to the 30 FPS regardless, and with uneven frame pacing as well. it's not great. And
Now, I will say, though, there's one more game to discuss, and this is actually the only one that provided a reasonably good experience for me, and that's Control.
yeah, agreed, definitely.
This one actually, in performance, I thought it played pretty all right. It was responsive enough to play. I mean, not exactly responsive. It was heavy, but it felt okay. It had minimal macro blocking compared to other games, even though obviously it's still present. The performance was, of course, not completely stable, but it seemed to be a mix of stream plus the actual server it's running on. But honestly, seeing this running on the Switch screen itself, it looked pretty all right.
Yeah.
I could see if it remained stable, this would be an acceptable enough way, I guess, to enjoy it if you really had no other option.
So this is the game that would convert you, or is it just too far off the mark?
It wouldn't convert me, of course. It's just, this is literally the only one out of this entire list where I actually felt like I could conceivably play this. If I was left with just the Switch and no other actual games in there and only had access to cloud services, this is the only one I would actually be able to play.
Yeah, I think that's,
of these.
That's probably my takeaway as well. Also, obviously there's the ray tracing feature on Control, which I don't think any of the other cloud games really push for, like outlandish settings. You could do anything. You could, and with GeForce Now, the RTX 3080 shows you can put anything on the other side, server side, like atop of the NPC, and just go nuts with settings.
Although even there, sometimes some games have weird frame rate limits to save on bandwidth costs, and that just kind of gets into the nature of what cloud streaming means for games right now, especially.
Yeah.
So you look at this run of titles, and before going in, I was just kind of expecting an even experience across the board. I wasn't expecting to love it, but I actually expected better than this.
Yeah.
But what surprised me is, one, that there is a huge variation, with some games being pretty all right and most of them being terrible. But I was actually surprised at how bad they could get. Like when you see just the severity of the macro blocking in certain situations, or just the instability of the performance, I don't understand how they can actually justify the price that they're offering. Like, to me, this feels like this would be part of a service, maybe.
Yeah.
Which, you kind of know what you're getting into, but spending that much on something like Kingdom Hearts 3, when the game itself on every other platform is basically dirt cheap at this point, this is not a good thing. And I don't like what this means for the potential future of the Switch. Like, I understand the hardware is reaching sort of this point where it's not as feasible to bring other games over to it necessarily. But I'm also kind of feeling like there's probably no point in doing it this way. And I hope this doesn't become like the de facto standard, right? Like, Panic Button puts all that effort into their ports over to the Switch, and they've done amazing work there. But I'm worried that publishers might look at this and be like, well, it'd be cheaper and easier if we just did cloud versions. But they're not good enough. It's not good enough.
No way. The sense I get is that it's just been thrown at another company just to handle it, rather than doing some even basic stuff like Kingdom Hearts. I would have liked to have Kingdom Hearts on Switch, like the original two. And also, like in the case of Panic Button stuff, it's kind of a joy to see, as a technical exercise, what companies can do. Like if they really pushed that console. So
yeah, like you see something recently, like I looked at like Dying Light 1 last year on the Switch, and like that was amazing to see running on the hardware, and they did a really great job bringing that over. It offers the complete experience with the sacrifices you would expect, but it still looks the part. And you can use it as people use the Switch, which is in a portable fashion. Right now with this cloud stuff, I mean, you're basically limited to sitting near a Wi-Fi router or using Ethernet.
Yeah.
That's it.
My big takeaway is that I wouldn't use it either way. It's kind of obvious to me portable players, maybe the intention here, 720p stream, high compression, which you can hide a little bit by playing it portably, all of that. But then you do have to deal with the Wi-Fi connection side, which is less secure, less stable. So
that's kind of, I guess, our verdict on this. At the current time, cloud streaming on Switch is kind of a failure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good solution. big thumbs down from us.
Yeah,
on this.
afraid so. Sorry, John. I was looking to kind of convince you on some level that this would work, but,
Well,
but it's not. I think what we need is a GeForce Now app on Switch, and then that would
I will say this.
that would go a long way.
Looking at all the cloud solutions that again, none of these options are right for me necessarily, but I have to hand it to GeForce Now for actually being a remarkably good experience. It's the only cloud platform currently that I could actually see myself using in certain situations. They're definitely onto something, and I feel like companies might want to look at what NVIDIA is doing there and maybe try to duplicate that to some degree, because this is not working.
No. Let's call it there. I don't really think there's much else to add besides I'm not really a goer for a lot of these games, but maybe they're all on free trial, so give them a go to see, judge for yourself the quality of the service, the latency on your connection, all that stuff. We can only speak for ourselves. But either way, thank you so much for joining me, John, on this one.
Happy to help, Tom.
And if you did enjoy this video, feel free to like or subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell for instant notifications as any new video lands. All the rest, we're on Twitter. You can get high quality videos on our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net. But from the both of us, thanks for watching.